Mom always favored my brother, but when she stole my inheritance to save him, she crossed the line. Now, at 28, I've spent my life watching Mom put Jake first in everything, even before Dad died. But when Dad passed in a car accident when I was 12 and Jake was 16, Mom's favoritism became overwhelming. I was left to grieve alone, while she poured all her energy into comforting Jake, telling me I needed to be strong for him. From then on, I took on cooking, cleaning, and caring for the house as Mom focused on Jake's needs. The favoritism was evident even before Dad's death. When I was 6, Jake pushed me off the swing because he wanted to use it. I broke my arm, and Mom blamed me for not sharing. Jake regularly stole from my piggy bank, and she said he needed it more. When he destroyed my science project because he didn't win, she made me apologize to him and bought him a new video game to make him feel better. By high school, Jake started acting out, skipping classes, talking back to teachers, and fighting. Each time, Mom made excuses, saying he was struggling with Dad's death. She even moved him to a different school after he was caught selling cigarettes to younger students, claiming the first school wasn't challenging enough for him. Meanwhile, I focused on school, joined clubs, and worked part-time jobs, but Mom never attended any of my events. She missed my honor roll ceremony because Jake had detention and couldn't come to my debate competition because Jake needed help with his homework. My achievements never seemed to matter compared to Jake's troubles. At 17, Jake's drinking began. He crashed Mom's car while drunk at 18, and she took out a loan for a lawyer to reduce his charges. Months later, after another DUI, she refinanced the house to pay his legal fees. By 25, he'd lost his license, so Mom drove him everywhere, sacrificing her job in the process. When I suggested he take the bus, she argued it wasn't safe and that families should help each other. I put myself through college with scholarships and a job at a local bakery, Chin's Sweet Shop, where Mrs. Chun became like a second mother. She taught me about baking and business, and when I graduated, she even attended my ceremony because Mom couldn't make it. Jake had a job interview and needed her to drive him. Mrs. Chin helped me develop a business plan for my bakery, and my grandma, Dad's mom, was my biggest supporter, visiting me at the bakery each week. Grandma was the only one who saw how damaging Mom's behavior was for both me and Jake. When Grandma passed away last year, she left me $50,000 specifically for opening my bakery. But 3 months after she passed, the money hadn't been transferred. When I contacted the lawyer, I found out Mom had already collected it, saying she'd handle it since I was too busy. I confronted Mom, and she broke down, confessing that she'd given $45,000 of it to Jake. She claimed he needed it to get his license back and start a trucking business, saying I could start small with the remaining $5,000 because many businesses start that way. It was crushing to hear. When Jake came by that night, he acted entitled, dismissing my dreams and saying Grandma always favored me, so I shouldn't complain. That was the last straw. I told both Mom and Jake I was done. When I reminded Mom how Grandma had warned her about enabling Jake, she cried, saying I was cruel to bring it up. Jake sneered, saying I was jealous because Mom loves me more. I blocked their numbers and social media accounts, finally cutting them out of my life. After blocking my mother and Jake, I thought things would settle down. I was wrong. They quickly escalated, and soon my decision to cut contact seemed almost impossible to maintain. Initially, they started showing up at my workplace. At first, they'd sit in the parking lot during my lunch breaks, watching and waiting. Soon after, they began arriving before work, with Jake standing by my car and Mom trying to talk to me as I walked into the building. My coworkers noticed, and the awkwardness in the office grew each day. People saw my mom crying by my car, and others heard Jake yelling about how selfish I was. My supervisor eventually pulled me aside, asking if I needed any assistance. It was humiliating to know my family drama had spilled over into my professional life. Things took a turn for the worse one Tuesday when Jake tried to follow me into the office, yelling so loudly that people on the second floor could hear him. Security had to intervene, stopping him at the front desk while Mom stood outside, crying to anyone who would listen about how I was breaking her heart. Eventually, security banned them both from the property, but Mom wouldn't give up. She began emailing me from different addresses, pleading with me to reconsider, saying I was destroying our family. She even sent emails to my work address, causing trouble with HR, who warned me this could jeopardize my job. Relatives on mom's side joined the pressure campaign. My uncle Pete took to Facebook, posting family photos and calling me a heartless daughter who was turning her back on her mother. My cousins chimed in, saying I was too harsh and selfish for not forgiving Jake. They even messaged my friends to tell them what an awful person I was. But none of them offered to help replace the money mom had taken, and none seemed interested in holding Jake accountable. Then, last weekend, everything changed when I ran into Jake's ex-girlfriend, Sarah, at the grocery store. She and Jake had dated for about 2 years, but had broken up 6 months ago. Mom had never liked Sarah because she encouraged Jake to stop drinking and get a real job. I mentioned Jake's supposed trucking business, and Sarah burst out laughing. She revealed that Jake didn't have any plans for a business. He had been gambling for over a year and was in serious debt, owing more than $40,000 to dangerous people who were now threatening him. Sarah pulled out her phone and showed me months of text messages between her and Jake, in which he openly bragged about convincing Mom to take my inheritance to pay off his gambling debts. Reading through those messages was agonizing. In them, Jake called me stupid for believing the trucking story, saying Mom would always choose him over me, so it was easy to get her to hand over the money. He even mocked Grandma, saying she'd been dumb to leave me the money instead of him. The messages also included plans he and Mom had to claim the rest of Grandma's estate, including money left to other relatives. Sarah shared more details, showing me how Jake had been borrowing money from anyone he could. He'd taken $5,000 from our elderly neighbor, Mr. Wilson, under the pretense of needing medical assistance. He had also borrowed $3,000 from an old friend, claiming it was for a car repair business he was starting. But every dollar he received was gambled away, as he spiraled deeper into debt, desperate to win back what he'd lost. Armed with these screenshots, I went to Mom's house that evening. She tried to deny it all, calling Sarah bitter and vindictive. But when I confronted her with the text messages, she finally admitted the truth. She revealed that the loan sharks had been showing up at her house, threatening Jake, and that she felt she had no choice but to take my inheritance to protect him. I asked why she hadn't sold her own house or taken out a loan, and her response was chilling. She simply couldn't risk losing her home, saying that I was young and could save up for my bakery again. To add insult to injury, Mom admitted that Jake had already spent the remaining $5,000 on a used car instead of attempting to get his license back, which had been her justification all along. The truth about Jake's gambling was even worse than I had imagined. Mom confessed that he'd been draining her finances for months, taking every dollar she had. He'd emptied her savings account, maxed out credit cards in her name, and even pawned her jewelry. She was on the edge of bankruptcy, but had kept it hidden from everyone else. She showed me threatening messages Jake had received from the loan sharks, detailing where he and Mom lived and tracking his daily movements. She explained that she was terrified for him, but had never contacted the police because Jake refused, saying he couldn't risk getting into more trouble. A week after confronting Mom about taking my inheritance, I received a certified letter from Grandma's lawyer with devastating news. While reviewing the estate paperwork, he found out Mom had forged my signature on several documents to gain access to my inheritance. He had the signatures examined, and a handwriting expert confirmed they were fakes. The lawyer explained he was legally obligated to report this forgery, leaving me with a difficult decision: whether to press charges against my own mother. Mom called me soon after, frantic and tearful, begging me not to press charges. She blamed everything on Jake, saying she'd only done it to help him out of desperation. She shared how Jake had threatened to cut all contact with her and even move across the country if she didn't help him, playing on her fear of abandonment. Yet it wasn't only fear. I knew she was unable to let go of her compulsion to protect Jake, even at my expense. As the investigation continued, more of Jake's schemes came to light. He'd been scamming people within our community for years, using fake business ventures to extract large sums of money. Jake targeted people who trusted him, crafting fake documents, websites, and even business references to make his companies seem legitimate. His victims included church members, elderly neighbors, and old friends, all of whom believed they were investing in real opportunities. One of his victims was Mr. and Mrs. Peterson, an elderly couple from our church, who'd given him $25,000 from their retirement savings. Jake had convinced them he was getting government contracts to renovate low-income housing. He even took them to look at buildings, pretending his company would soon start work on them. Another victim was Miss Thompson, a former teacher who recently inherited money from her mother. Jake persuaded her to invest $15,000 in a fake food truck business, even convincing Mom to cook food for a tasting event to make it seem real. The third victim, Tom Wilson, a recent college graduate, gave him $10,000 in hopes of a job in a tech startup that didn't exist. The police discovered that Mom had known about some of these scams and even helped cover them up by paying off a few victims. She had given $10,000 to the Petersons, $8,000 to Miss Thompson, and written a letter of apology to Tom's family, promising to repay them. Over the years, she had drained her retirement savings, taken out personal loans, and pawned her jewelry, all to protect Jake's reputation and keep him from facing the consequences. She showed the police bank statements proving she had withdrawn more than $50,000 over the past year to cover his debts. Jake exploited Mom's good standing in the community to further his scams. He'd speak openly about his business plans at church, using Mom's reputation to legitimize himself. Many victims didn't report him out of sympathy for Mom, who Jake would position as a grieving widow unable to bear the loss of her son. He used our family's tragedy to manipulate people, evading accountability while continuing his schemes. Without a driver's license, he couldn't keep a steady job, so he created a series of fraudulent businesses to live off other people's money, all the while gambling away each new loan. Jake was eventually arrested, and the full extent of his deception became clear. Police found 7 different scams totaling over $120,000 in stolen funds. His victims, many of whom had known our family for years, included people who'd taken out loans or dipped into their retirement savings to support what they thought were real business opportunities. Mom's actions in supporting Jake were equally damaging, enabling him to steal without facing consequences. Deciding to press charges against Mom was heart-wrenching. She had betrayed me, stolen my inheritance, and forged my name, all to protect Jake's criminal behavior. Her lawyer reached out with an offer to settle by selling her house to repay me, but when I refused to drop the charges, she turned on me. She claimed she had to save her resources for Jake's defense. Even now, after everything that had happened, she was still putting him first, willing to risk everything for her son who had shown no remorse. The stress of the investigation began to take a toll on her health, and she went on medical leave from work. In a desperate attempt to sway me, she sent a long, emotional email accusing me of killing her by not forgiving her mistakes. She insisted that a real daughter would let it go. When her pleas failed, she involved our pastor, who called to urge me to show forgiveness, warning that pressing charges would damage my soul. Many of Mom's family members sided with her, calling me heartless for taking legal action. My Uncle Pete even started a fundraiser for her legal fees, claiming I was making her homeless by refusing to drop the case. Dad's side of the family, however, supported my decision. They remembered Grandma's warnings and recognized the toxic dynamic Mom had created by constantly rescuing Jake. They set up a small fund to help me save again for my bakery. Mrs. Chun, my mentor from the bakery, reached out as well. She offered me part-time work at her new location and promised to help me with business connections when I was ready to launch my own bakery. Last week, I moved to a different city to start fresh. I found an apartment and secured a job at an accounting firm. I haven't told any family members where I moved, determined to protect myself from any further interference. Mom's lawyer continued to pressure me to drop the charges, even offering her repayment in small installments of $100 a month, which I refused. This time, justice had to be served. Jake's trial is set for next month, and he faces multiple fraud charges with a likely prison sentence. Mom keeps calling from different numbers, pleading with me to write a letter asking the judge for leniency. She insists Jake made mistakes but doesn't deserve jail time. Even some people from our old church have reached out, saying Mom only acted out of love to protect her son. But I can't ignore the years of manipulation, betrayal, and hurt that have piled up and I won't feel guilty for seeking what is rightfully mine. The court date for Mom's forgery case is approaching as well, and I'm at peace with my decision. This fight is no longer just about the money. It's about standing up for myself after years of being sidelined and mistreated. For once, I'm standing my ground, refusing to sacrifice my future to enable Jake's destructive choices and Mom's delusions. It's painful, but it feels like freedom. The past few months have been a whirlwind, but now, as court dates loom for both Mom and Jake, I feel a strange sense of closure. For years, I carried the weight of Mom's favoritism and Jake's recklessness, always believing that family loyalty meant sacrificing my own happiness. But as I stand on the brink of these trials, I know that finally facing this reality is the first step toward my freedom. Jake's trial came first. In court, his lies unraveled one by one as witness after witness testified about his fake businesses and scams. The evidence was overwhelming. I sat in the back, listening as people I'd known my whole life shared how Jake had manipulated them. Some cried, expressing guilt for trusting him, while others spoke with anger about how his deceit impacted their lives. For the first time, Jake couldn't charm his way out of trouble, and the weight of his actions seemed to hit him. He avoided looking at me, perhaps realizing that even I couldn't save him now. The court handed him a prison sentence, and although it was painful, I felt an unexpected lightness. He'd finally have to face the consequences of his choices. Mom's case followed soon after. When she took the stand, she looked exhausted and frail, a shadow of the woman who once held our family together, however imperfectly. Her lawyer tried to paint her actions as the desperate measures of a mother protecting her child, but the evidence of forgery was irrefutable. In her closing statement, she looked over at me, her eyes pleading, but I knew this was another attempt to sway me. I felt a pang of sadness, but remained firm. She had forged my name, stolen my inheritance, and betrayed me countless times. Even as the judge issued her sentence, she remained unrepentant, insisting she'd only done what any mother would. After the trials, I found myself free in a way I'd never experienced before. The bonds of guilt, duty, and misplaced loyalty had finally broken. I was ready to rebuild, this time on my own terms. I stayed connected with Dad's side of the family, whose quiet support had been a lifeline. They understood the complexity of what I'd been through and encouraged me to focus on my future. Mrs. Chun became a regular figure in my life again. She'd welcome me back to her bakery part-time, offering advice and helping me work through a new business plan for my own shop. We spent countless hours reviewing costs, possible locations, and marketing strategies. Slowly, the dream of my bakery began to feel real again, no longer tainted by Mom and Jake's interference. In therapy, I started to understand how years of favoritism and neglect had shaped me, pushing me to overachieve in hopes of earning the love that should have been freely given. I realized I'd spent my life minimizing myself, never wanting to be a burden, always thinking Jake's needs came first. It was freeing to finally unlearn these habits and to prioritize my dreams without guilt. Life in my new city has been quiet and healing. I'm building relationships with new friends who know me for who I am, not for the drama of my family's past. I'm learning that family doesn't have to be blood, but can be the people who support, encourage, and truly care for you.